I'm 6 days into a 9-day passage from the Solomon Islands to Vanuatu on not the best weather window, a bit too early in the season, but I'm going for it anyway because I'm quite motivated to get to Australia. So in this episode, you'll see the final push. The last 3 days, I'm slowly getting more and more exhausted and more excited to get in before the next round of bad weather hits. Day 6 out here. I have been doing a lot of sleeping today. Last night the wind really kicked up and the waves really kicked up and it all got really intense, so I decided that I was just gonna sleep all morning. I was also exhausted because I haven't really been getting a lot of sleep lately. So I officially woke up when the AIS alarm went off at 11. The wind is still pretty furious. I have my storm jib up and one reef in the main. But what I learned yesterday when I switched to the working jib was that even one reef in the main and the storm jib is less sail than 3 reefs in the main and the working jib. So there's some sort of a learning curve going on there. But yeah, the boat's happy with this amount of sail, which means it's probably blowing about 30 knots. I'd say the seas are probably, 2 to 3 meters. Everything is supposed to start calming down by the end of the day today. I have some beans that I really want to make, but it's just too hard to cook anything right now because the waves are just so violent. Basically, I need one hand to hold the chopping board onto the counter, one hand to hold the things I'm chopping onto the chopping board, one hand for the knife, and one hand to keep myself on the boat. So food has been pretty simple. Every day at sea feels a little bit different. It's largely dependent on the weather. Is it sunny? Is it cloudy? Is it rainy? Is it squally? Is it beautiful blue sky? Is it puffy clouds? What are the waves like? What is the wind like? On those chill days where I'm going downwind with full sail, smooth seas, blue sky, I've probably rigged up the little underway sunshade in the cockpit and I'm reading, listening to music, blissful la la la. And then on the nasty days I'm down below, hunkered away, trying to pretend I'm somewhere else. On this trip, ever since, I'd say the first 2 days I had pretty cloudy weather, and then once I got away from the Solomons, it's been consistently nice and sunny, which is amazing. But it has been really windy. It's probably averaged about 30 knots with 3-meter seas, and I'm pretty much close hauled, so that's made it kind of intense. This morning I woke up late because I was exhausted, and I've kind of spent the day down below just reading, watching a little bit of Netflix, listening to music, sort of not really paying attention to the fact that I'm at sea beyond the usual, checking the AIS, doing sail changes. Each day I probably do about 3 or 4 sail changes on this passage because the wind is really up and down. For the most part it's just taking reefs in and out of the main, but yesterday I switched head sails for about 6 hours until I switched back. As long as it's sunny, I'm usually pretty happy because it means the batteries are happy and there's not going to be squalls that I'm worried about, and I can kind of chill. Everything just feels brighter. Alright, one way to know that it's definitely less rough is that I'm making popcorn right now and the pot isn't falling off the stove. Check it out, I don't have to hold it onto the stove. Even though the stove gimbals, the pot was still falling off. And yes, I know they make those things that you can attach onto here and they squeeze around the pot, but check out how janky this stove is. It's all like wired together, so those things wouldn't work anymore. But yes, we are making strides, and the bowl on the towel to increase friction, leaning against the water pump, is not falling into the sink. Cooking just became so much easier. It's 2 a.m. I just put out the working jib in replacement for the storm jib, and I have the full main up. This weather has just dropped like a hat. The seas are way down. I could probably even open the hatch right now for some air, but I'm still a little gun shy about that, so I'm probably gonna wait for the morning when I can pay more attention. But I'm almost at the point where I should put up the giant head sail, but I just don't feel like I want to do that at night. so hopefully the wind doesn't drop too much more. Right now I'm going about 4 knots, which is all I really ever hope to get out of this boat, close haul. Probably tomorrow morning I'll get up and do another sail change, bigger head sail, but for now I'm just gonna stick with the little guy so that I can sleep. It's day 7, I have 330 miles to go, and my next big decision that's going to happen at the end of the day is whether I cut through this patch of shoals and reefs or go around it. Going around it adds 40 miles to the trip, and it also creates a trickier tack angle because this whole passage I've just been a couple degrees off of close hauled, and to go around it I'd have to turn off the wind a bit, and then once I'm around it, turn really hard on the wind, and it adds 40 miles, which is a whole day of sailing. Going through it creates a way nicer tack angle that I know I'll be able to make, but if the waves start to build and I'm around funky shoals and reefs, it can create really big, nasty, snarly surprise waves. I need to make sure the forecast is for pretty flat water for the next 48 hours. Well, when I say pretty flat, I mean less than 2 meters. If I'm gonna go through this shoal patch, which I would like to do, but it does make it a little more intense. I'm skirting around reefs and banks, and I'm gonna have to pay a lot more attention at night, because right now it's like, oh, if I get 5 miles off course, it doesn't really matter in the scheme of things. Well, it's the calmest it's been all trip, with the exception of the 20-ish hours I spent in the lee of the Lewisades. I want to sit in the cockpit, but I'm still getting waves in the cockpit, so I'm a little bit worried. It's also really chilly. I am sailing south again. It's day 8. Last night was very restful. I knew it wouldn't be, because I'm coming between all these reefs, and I just wanted to be really extra sure that I was on the right course and that I wasn't heading off towards a reef or a bank. So I set my alarm for every 40 minutes. I've been doing every hour and 20 before that because there hasn't really been much to deal with. But every 40 minutes ensures that I'm never fully asleep. And then I'm more attuned to the boat and also to the course. So I got up a lot to tweak the course. The wind is really up and down. It has been for quite a few days, which normally is something I can kind of ignore, and the get kind of zigzags a bit, which is fine. That's just the wind vane being a wind vane. But when I'm between all this stuff, I don't want those zigzags. I want to stay pretty close to my line, so I was getting up for all the wind things. But there's a period of about 2 hours from probably 6:30 to 8:30 when there was this really nice almost full moon, no spray or waves coming into the cockpit, and the seas were mellow.
For better days to come and carry us like wind in our sails. Hold on tight, I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us if we just hold on tight. This vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. We are dreamers of the shore.
So I have 75 miles to go before I get to the edge of the Great Barrier Reef. And Dan and my mom have both been very coy about what happens tonight, but they've both hinted that something's gonna happen, so I'm guessing the waves are gonna start picking up again. But they haven't told me to how much, so I don't know. The weather on my Garmin says nothing terrible is gonna happen, so I'm not really sure, but they both seem to be under the impression that the internet weather is being a little more ominous, so we'll see what happens there. This is breakfast. It's muesli. This bowl is about 5 times too big for the amount of muesli I have, which is perfect because it means it won't spill out the sides. And then I have my thermos of green tea waiting for me, and I'm just gonna read and eat this. And yeah, it's one of those days when it's rough enough that I don't really want to do much / can't really do much because it's just everything is really hard when you're standing. So I just had my mom contact Townsville for me. Townsville, the whole town. Breakwater Marina in Townsville is where you go to clear customs and immigration, but before I left I hadn't exactly nailed down where exactly I was supposed to go. Because I kind of thought, oh my god, I'm so ready to be done with this. I kind of thought I'd be arriving during the day, and I figured I could hail the marina and they would be around. As it turns out, I'm probably going to be coming in at night, sometime between 8 at night and 4 in the morning. So I decided it was better to figure these things out while people were awake. It's gonna be culture shock for sure. I've just spent 4 months in places where they barely have roads. The whole time I was in the Solomons, I saw cars twice, both in the same place, Gizo. And even there, the roads aren't paved. And then in Vanuatu, often I wasn't in places where there were cars or roads. I'm used to beaches and paths and straw huts and people in dugout canoes coming up to my boat to trade stuff with me. And it's all going to be a lot when I first arrive. I'm aware of that. Kind of excited for it. It's like, what is that spa thing where they say it's really good if you do, like, plunge yourself into really cold water and then plunge yourself into really hot water because it kind of shocks your system and gets your blood flowing again. I think this is the cranial equivalent of that. I think it's great to put ourselves in these situations where we challenge our mental capacities. I'm so loopy. For this passage has been wild. I haven't seen a day where it's blown less than 25 the whole time. I've had my storm jib up all but probably the first 3 days. I had my working jib up, and then when I got to the Lewisades it started to blow 35. I've only put the working jib up for a couple hours in between that. Just been a lot. It's been really rough. I hurt my wrist yesterday. I was reefing the main, and I would say at once an hour I'll get a really huge wave that just smacks the side of my boat, pours into the cockpit, sends the geck on her ear. At the moment that the wave was hitting, I was pushing down on the winch with my left hand to get the sail up, and my body was thrown so that all of my weight was on the hand holding the winch handle. But as I was pushed onto it, the winch handle pushed down, as they are wont to do in a winch, and the little slidey hand grip bit slid, and I basically overextended my wrist. These things have never happened before on passages. This has just been really full on, and I've been close reached the whole time, so that just makes it even more exciting. All these things are to say that although I am in high spirits, I'm really excited to get in, and you know, it's been a challenging passage and I've had my moments, but last night I had a beautiful time sitting under the moon listening to music. This morning it feels like the waves are way down, which they are. I mean, they're still super wavy and I'm still getting spray in the cockpit. It's always mental gymnastics when we put ourselves in situations like this in life. But I think I love those mental gymnastics. I am excited for being culture shocked in the same way that I'm excited to be culture shocked by going to sea and just having everything stripped away but the wind and the waves and the boat and myself, because that's another form of culture shock too, actually, is just being alone at sea. And I guess sailing is like that. It's a lot of extremes, and sometimes that grates on me, but sometimes it's amazing. It's like my mom always said, the lows are often zeros, but the highs are always tens. Today is becoming a bit squally. This is the 24 hours that I'm in and amongst the shoals, so even though the waves are a lot shorter, they're still really steep and super irregular. I took one big wave in the cockpit already, and everything is just Everything is just so all over the place. I don't know, I'm getting tired of not being able to just stand or do something with both hands. I always have to be holding on to whatever surface I'm trying to stick onto. I believe I've talked before about solo sailor hallucinations, and I think every solo sailor experiences these at one point or another, but I've just spent the last 3 hours smelling brownies, like honest to God, the most delicious brownie smell ever. And obviously I know that there's no way I can smell brownies because I'm alone on a boat in the middle of the ocean with no ships within at least a 10-mile radius of me, and I'm not making brownies, I don't think, unless other Holly is, but yeah, I can smell them. They smell really good, and I've never had a nasal hallucination before, olfactory hallucination, I don't know what you would call that, but yet here we are, and I'm kind of enjoying it. I'm just leaning in, daydreaming about brownies now. You know, having this new sail is totally changing the way that I sail, which, okay, I'll elaborate. It used to be that reefing my old main was so annoying because I had the wrong sized cars, the main was all baggy and blown out, that I just would fiddle around with the head sails more, but I only have 3 head sails, so often I was either underpowered or overpowered. But now I sort of find the head sail that most matches the conditions, and then use reefing and unreefing the main as a way to keep my boat balanced. And with this new main, I can put a reef in about 5 minutes. Sorry, big waves. In about 5 minutes, which is just a third of the time it takes me to change a head sail, and I'm not way up forward on the boat getting sprayed and tossed around and stuff. Pretty much every day now I'm doing a couple reef changes of the sail, and every time I do it I'm just so thankful. So thank you, Rolly Tasker, so much, and thank you guys, all of you who have sent emails in to Rolly Tasker for my first video of installing the sail, thanking them for sponsoring me and giving me a new sail to be safer. They read them all and they reached out to me. That's just made my partnership with them even nicer because they see how much you guys care about me and how much of a difference that makes in my life. Day 9, wind 20 to 25, seas just a wee bit of chop, lad. Land ho! The conditions are picking up right now out there. I think it's 10-foot waves at 7 seconds or something. And as I was getting into the reef, I could tell that the conditions were picking up because they were picking up in the reef, but in a smaller way. I have about 60 miles to go. If I had been around other people at all in the last 10 days, I would say I'm getting a cold, but I don't know, maybe I'm allergic to Australia. 60 miles to go, so the unfortunate thing with this pass is that it's 70 miles due north of Townsville. And the wind is basically southeast, so I do have to make, I think, 1 tack, which isn't as bad as I thought it could be, which puts me in around 10 on the fuel pier. All I just did was get up to take a reef out of the sail, so now instead of 2 reefs, it's got 1, and the storm jib still. I'm really loving the storm jib. I think if the wind is 20 to 30, the storm jib just works better when I'm close hauled. The working jib is better if it's more like 15 to 25, and then if it's gonna stay in the 20s, I think this is how I want. My boat balances really well, I don't know, with more of the, that is what they say, isn't it? That when it's, actually, is that what they say? I don't know. Someone told me that when it's heavy conditions, you want the weight centered into the middle of the boat, which kind of makes sense, because sometimes if I've got 3 reefs in the main and the working jib, it just feels like the bow is smashing into all the waves. And on this trip I had huge waves, and of course the bow did smash into many a wave, but it didn't feel as bad. I guess people with roller furling can kind of play around with sail trim like that, but this is the first time I've really messed around with it. Ugh. Yes, it's calm, she says. I just made some celebratory Lanto pancakes. It's like a pancake crepe mixture.
Sometimes we act like a fool, not aware we're troublemakers. Sometimes we try to be cool, not being givers, only takers. Stop for a minute, stop and breathe for a minute. Don't get over your head, try to listen instead, won't you? Think for a minute, who you wanna be for a minute. Don't get over your head, you're like everyone else, aren't you? You could gain from being a bit nicer, know when to talk and when to shut your mouth. You're so moody, always such a fighter. Try to open up your mind sometimes, you'll be just fine. You'll be just Sometimes we yell when we're sad, and sometimes we laugh when we're afraid. Sometimes we smile when we're mad, and some lines we wished we'd never said. Stop for a minute, stop and breathe for a minute. Don't get over your head, try to listen instead, won't you? Think for a minute, who you wanna be for a minute. Don't get over your head, you're like everyone else, aren't you? You could gain from being a bit nicer, know when to talk and when to shut your mouth. You're so moody, always such a fighter. Try to open up your mind sometimes, you'll be just
Man, I haven't seen civilization like this since New Zealand. It's been 4 months since I've seen anywhere near this much of goings on, and it's pretty wild. I'm getting kind of nervous, I'm not gonna lie. As the sun sets, the beautiful full moon is rising behind me, and all of these city lights are starting to come out. And I knew Townsville was a big city, but I thought it was smaller than this. I'm tied up to the dock. I don't think I've ever been this tired after a passage in my life. As I was coming in through the break wall of the marina, I had to keep reminding myself to stay awake. I've sort of tidied up down below. Partially it doesn't matter because customs is going to tear it apart tomorrow anyway. The rest I'll get up early-ish tomorrow, maybe 6:30. I can't imagine they'll be here before 8. Good morning from Australia! I slept a solid almost 10 hours last night. So this morning I got up, finished tidying the boat, did some stretching, which felt really good after 9 days of bracing myself. I have a coffee that I have not yet drunk. This is just a wake collie with enough sleep. And I have a game plan because in Australia they tear apart your boat. So this is the strategy for making it easier for them. So I've taken everything out of the main cabin, all of the cushions and stuff. I left the radio on in case they hail me, but it's really annoying. And then I figure they'll start here, and then all the cushions are in the V-berth. And while they're working on the main cabin, I'll take everything out of the quarter berth and put it in the cockpit so they can do the quarter berth next. And then, while they're doing the quarter berth, I'll take everything out of the V-berth and put it in the main cabin so they can then do the V-berth area. And then all that's left is the LAS. So I hope they like my plan. You know, I feel like we get annoyed with people who are just doing their job, like when you're at the airport and they need to search your bag. Oftentimes I see people getting annoyed at the people searching the bag, but they're not the ones who made the rules, right? They're just doing their job. And I once had this lady, okay, I was flying from Maine. This is a disco ball origin story. So I'm going to stand in front of the disco ball, which is taking kind of a beating. So I was flying from Maine. I bought the disco ball. I had a disco ball, a skateboard, a set of paints, and a speaker in my backpack that I was carrying onto the plane. And I guess the speaker flagged in the system. And so the lady said, I'm going to have to take apart your whole... It was a backpack, and it was at the bottom. And she looked like she was just ready for me to lay into her. And I said, you know what, don't worry, it's just your job. I don't mind. And she looked like she was gonna cry from relief, and then proceeded to take out all of the stuff, and I was like, hi, I'm normal. But I think the moral that I learned from that story was that these guys who are doing these jobs are just people, and they just are doing jobs, so I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible for them, because one way or another, they're going to go through my entire boat. Is it annoying? Yes. Is it invasive? Yes. Am I nervous about it? Of course I am. But it's going to happen, and I knew that coming to Australia, that this is what they do, so I'm going to try to make it as smooth as possible. And they charge $50 every 15 minutes, so that's another incentive to make it as smooth as possible. But mostly I just feel like, I don't know, if you're kind, you get kindness back. And that's what I want to do with the officials who are in control of telling me if I can come into the country or not. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I'm in Australia. I made it. I picked a really shit weather window too early in the season because I just wanted to get here, and was it shitty? Yes. But I'm here. So, it all worked out in the end. Thank you guys for watching this week's video. Thank you in particular to everyone who donated and helped me to pay for my haul out in Australia and overhaul of the boat. It was a bit pricier than I thought it would be. I ended up stuck in the boatyard for an extra week, and the boatyard charges a lot of money per day, and I had to get a lot of different parts that I didn't think I would need and get things replaced that I didn't think I'd need to replace, so I do really appreciate all of that. It is what helps me carry on with this, because all the money that I get is from you guys, from patrons, and from the little bit of ad revenue that I get from YouTube. So thank you, big thank you for all of that. I put out new videos every 2 weeks on YouTube, and for my patrons, you guys get a snack on the weeks that I don't put out a full-length YouTube video. For patron snacks, it's any requests that you guys have about things on my boat that maybe you want to know a little bit more about, or just life updates on what I'm doing currently because my videos lag behind, and yeah, just personal interactions of all the things you might want to know. And thank you, Tish, for always reminding me when I need to do another edit, so that I can sit down and make that happen on my little computer here at my new workstation. This is one of the things I did in the overhaul, is build this flip-up table so that I can do edits on the computer in an easier fashion. And thank you guys for all of your comments. I love reading them, and thanks for your watches and for subscribing to my channel, because that helps me get more views on my video. If you'd like to become a patron and join the Patreon team, my Patreon is patreon.com/windhippie, and for one-time donations I have a PayPal, paypal.me/windhippie. And I believe that is all. So patrons, I'll see you next week on Patreon, and YouTubers, I'll see you in another 2 weeks with another full-length episode.